Now back with Rachel McDonald. On this video, we return to the Jurassic Park franchise that we started many moons ago. So this is going to be the third Jurassic Park movie, simply called Jurassic Park 3. It's from 2001. It's directed this time by Joe Johnston, so the first film not to be directed by Spielberg, but I will say Joe Johnston is a close friend of Spielberg, so he's friends to direct. I think because I read quite a bit of the trivia for this one, and I know Johnson was hounding him for years to let him do it, and finally it happened. Rescue mission, and you have the returning character of Alan Grant, Sam Neill. And you've got a brief cameo by Ellie, the Laura Dern character. They're now separated, but she does have a brief cameo in the movie. So Alan Grant is approached by this couple, or ex-couple, as we find out later, the Kilbys, played by William H. Macy and Tia Leone. And they convince him that they need a tour guide to go into the jungle, and it turns out there's been a few white lies along the way. It's revealed later that they're actually searching for her son or their son.
It is their son, yeah.
Her current partner, her current boy toy, who we see a scene of at the beginning, and something happens. They go missing, so they kind of persuade the Alan Grant character along with his team. So you've got this new character of Billy, who's like kind of the new Alan Grant in a way. He's the upcoming Alan Grant in many ways, like follows in his footsteps, because Alan Grant sort of semi-retired, except he does teach. He's a lecturer at this point, but you've got this character of Billy who's very much meant to be like the new Alan Grant in any way, continuing on his like research and technology. What do you think about Jurassic Park 3?
Look, this one has always been my least favorite of the movies, and rewatching it, I kind of remember why. I think this one, I think by this point you can really see that it is just a money grab, because it just basically feels like a retread off the second one. You have someone lost on the island. It's not even the main island. Once again, we're on Isla Sorna, not Isla Nublar, which is the main one. I think they even lampshade at that point when the guys say to Sam Neill, they're like, we need someone who's been on the island before, and he's like, I've never been on this island before, you know. He's only ever been on the main one. So yeah, I did not have fun watching this movie. The characters, we're going to talk about the characters, because the characters were frustrating me to no end. Tia Leone's character in particular, I just wanted to stuff a gag in her mouth. Oh my God, that stupid woman. And I think like with the previous two entries, we at least have characters that we can find at least somewhat charming. Like the first movie is full of lots of characters that we like. The second movie, you still have Jeff Goldblum. You've got Julianne Moore's character, who might not be the best character, but Julianne Moore is a fun actress. You've got some other decent characters, but I find in this one, it's pretty much just Alan. Alan's like the only character that I really... Billy's okay, doesn't really do much, but he's okay. Yeah. But a lot of the adult characters in this one, I just want to smack in the face. I also don't think there's not much story to this one. You know, again, not that the first movie had the most intricate premise, but we at least got a good sequence of events. We got a good story. We got a good narrative. Some of the characters had little arcs. In this one, it was like, it just felt like I was just moving from scene to scene to scene, and every scene was just so loud. It was just like something crazy is happening. It's getting really loud. Now we'll move to the next set piece. Something else is happening. There were a couple of scenes that I do think were intense and scary, particularly towards the end of the movie with some of the dinosaurs, the Pterodactyl scene, and then there's a scene later on with the Spinosaurus when they're in the water, which I thought was quite intense. But for the most part, I spent most of the movie wanting to smack almost every character in the face and just wishing that the movie would be over, because it really did feel kind of empty by this point, the movies, you know, and you could tell there were a few bits where they were like trying to capture the magic of the original movie. Like there was a scene where they're floating down the river and they see like a herd of brachiosauruses, and they put the swelling Jurassic Park music on, and it's like, it's not really working. At least it wasn't working for me. So I just feel by this point the magic has kind of disappeared quite a lot, and it really does feel like like it is a bit of a money grab. It's fun to see Alan back. I always like Sam Neill. We like to claim him as an Australian, even though he is technically a Kiwi, but we like to try and claim him over here. But that for me was really the only fun part of the movie. I spent most of the time yelling at the TV screen. How did you go? How did you go watching this one?
Okay, well, this is going to be fun because I'm actually more positive on it.
Okay.
So I think the thing for me is what you were saying about this movie trying to recapture the magic of the first one. I actually think Lost World is more guilty of that, and that's why Lost World ends up being a little bit of a mediocre film, like decent enough, but like mediocre mostly, and disappointing, especially coming off the back of the first one, and just the fact that they got Spielberg back as well. So we maybe had a right to expect then it would be pretty good. But so I think that film actually fails more on that front, whereas this I think doesn't try to do that, and that's why it's more entertaining. Like I think this is just more of a like insane B movie style movie.
Actually, that's a good way to put it. Actually, yeah.
And I sort of think if you can't recreate like the greatness of the original film, that probably is the way to go, because it is quite easy to do like fun B movie antics with dinosaurs and stuff, like make it into like a creature feature. The plot is all over the place, and I think part of the problem with the plot is there's certain things in it, like the setup of the movie, where they're trying too hard, like they're throwing too much into it, and like because even a lot of the stuff with the Kilbys and their various lies, it's like they're almost trying too hard, whereas like the movie works best when it just keeps it simple and you can just enjoy the threat of the dinosaurs and these characters running around and just how silly it is. Characters are bad, I agree with that. Look, for the most part, they are the weakest part of the movie. Compare this again to Lost World. Alan Grant in this comes off much better than Jeff Goldblum's character in that, because for whatever reason they just seem to have lost the essence of what Ian Malcolm was from the original in that. Whereas this does sort of feel like Alan Grant, and
it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I think they've actually made him into a little bit, probably because he is like the outright lead, but they have made him into a more charismatic style lead type thing, where he does sort of have a few one-liners, and but once again it does feel like Alan Grant, like they've got the essence of the character, and he's got a little bit of an Indiana Jones vibe in this as well.
He does,
like,
doesn't
there's
he?
a little bit like that klutzy sort of charming type hero, and they even do like a thing with the hat in like
they do, yes.
Is something from the indie film, so he's very good. I enjoyed William H. Macy. It's actually quite good seeing him play someone a little bit more slick and confident, because he normally plays like bumbling sort of underdog.
He does, yeah.
And he's so good at it, so you're not going to complain. The characters are very disposable. Killed off the ones that were the most disposable, and they were a little bit gutless when it came to killing off anyone too major. Like that, you could see a definite hierarchy. Like when the pilot got killed, it was no surprise. There was this other guy who I think was like the first death. There was no surprise when he got killed.
Yeah.
And the characters probably were the weakest part. I definitely agree with you on Tia Leone. She was really annoying throughout the movie, and it was just OTT all the time and making her very unlikable. And it's a shame, because I actually don't mind her as an actress too much.
Me either. Yeah, no, I'm the same.
Pretty good, but like,
but she's just insufferable in this movie.
She did suddenly make the Julianne Moore character look a lot better from the last film.
I said to Stephen, I was like, these guys are making the geniuses from number 2 who thought it was a good idea to bring a baby T-Rex back to their camp. They're making them look like Einstein. I mean, this stupid woman gets onto this island that's full of carnivorous dinosaurs and decides to pull out a megaphone. Come on, use your head. Like, the minute she did that, I just wanted to smack her in the face. Then there's that scene where they're going through the jungle and they find the corpse of her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And the screaming she does in that scene, it's like, okay, look, I know that you're shocked that your boyfriend's corpse just fell out of the sky, okay? Anyone's going to have a little moment. But the way she just keeps screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming, it's like, my God, shut up! Someone stuff something in this woman's mouth, please! And it's like, come on. I hate dumb female characters. I hate dumb characters, full stop. But dumb female characters just grate me so much. And just everything about her character, the whole movie, she didn't do anything decent until like right at the end of the movie, which we'll talk about once we get there. But yeah, I do agree that William H. Macy's character was a little bit more bearable. You know, he at least seemed to be, you know, he was like listening to Grant and he was trying to like, you know, be a bit more reasonable than her. And he had a couple of moments where I think he like, you know, distracted the dinosaurs and tried to like play the hero. But her character, I just found so insufferable. And like, I noticed that they were trying to build a little bit of a character arc around those two. Like, we found out that they were divorced. So as they were looking for their son, they had like some moments where they would like talk about their relationship and stuff. But for me, because I wasn't invested in either of them, it just didn't work for me. You know, like the first movie, like the very first movie, when you watch like Alan's little arc of like, you know, learning to be a father to the kids, or you see Hammond's arc of learning that, you know, no expense spared doesn't necessarily mean, so you're invested in them. But like, I was not invested in these two at all. And I just kept wishing that they would die. You know, I was like so annoyed because you knew that they were going to make it to the end of the movie, because obviously you don't want to kill the parents once they've found their kids. That's a terrible ending. But I just kept hoping that one of them would die because they were so insufferable.
Well, I think that is maybe a big complaint of the film, is that they did chicken out of killing one of the big characters, because I definitely felt one of those two could have been sacrificed.
Yes, I think
and then they do that thing with Billy where they make it look like he's dead and he's actually not dead.
Yeah,
and like, in a way they should have stuck with that, because he did the heroic thing to save the kid, so it actually would have made that more meaningful if
and he did it on the back of, you know, you had that little storyline where you find out that he stole some of the raptor eggs, which is just the dumbest thing to do. But like, even Grant, after he dies, you know, talks about, you know, he wasn't bad, he was just curious. He wanted to see something up close. He's like, I understand that. So yeah, having him actually die and have Alan wear that guilt of, you know, being horrible to him just before he died because they had that fight, I think that would have been a much better arc, a much better character thing for Alan than to suddenly have Billy like, oh look, he's alive at the end of the movie, yay! I didn't like that.
I agree.
It
was pretty cheap. When you get a minute, taking a look at the wiki page for this film, because it is crazy that there were so many like ideas floating around for it, so much like back and forth, because there's 3 writers credited on it, but 2 of the writers, well, it's Alexandra Payne and his regular writing partner, Alan Taylor, I want to say Jim Taylor. I think it's Jim Taylor, but Alexandra Payne went, like, the year before this, he did Election, that film with Reese Witherspoon.
That's a good film, yeah.
And he's gone on to have, like, Oscar-nominated films, like about Smith. He did Sideways. Nebraska. So, like, he's gone on to have quite the career. But they were brought in to rewrite the original script. It's just, I mean, I think they said later on then, because they're known for sort of quirky indie humour in a way.
I was going to say.
I think originally there was much more humour in the script, and apparently it didn't make it into the final film.
That's a pity. Because the film could have used some more humour.
But I do recommend reading the wiki page because
Okay.
it is just so long, because there was just so much going on with the film at various stages. And like when you read some of the crazy ideas that were originally suggested, like I think from your point of view as someone who isn't so hot on the movie, like if those ideas have got in, I think you might have hated the movie.
Oh, okay.
Because there is an idea which they later use in one of like the later films, but there is an idea to have someone on like a motorbike, for example. And
Oh, yeah, they
but
do that in Jurassic World.
yeah, but I do recommend reading the wiki page
Oh, I
because,
definitely will. I
like, oh
love,
God,
yeah,
it's such a rabbit hole, basically. And there's stories of like people, like the actors not having a good time just because it's one of those shoots. Like Macy was
yeah.
like complaining on set apparently, and then at the end he said, well, might be the best thing I've ever done or something. So he suddenly changed his tune at the end. But I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think it was him, Tia Leone, or one of the other actors, like were very. I think it was just one of those like really demanding sort of shoots by the sound.
Yeah.
But
It also looked like a very physical shoot for them, like
yeah,
even more so than the previous two movies. Because the first two movies, at least, they have about half the movies where they're in a controlled environment, whereas this movie they're thrown into the chaos pretty much from the beginning. So yeah, I mean, lots of outdoor scenes, lots of nighttime scenes, lots of scenes where they're getting drenched and having to work with water.
I think
All of
that's
these
the
things,
thing.
yeah, I think are pretty horrible for actors. And no matter how good you try to make the conditions, you can't control nature, you can't control the great outdoors. So watching this movie, I think, yeah, it must have been a much more harrowing experience for the actors than the previous two movies had been, because they at least had scenes that were indoors, that were more controlled, that were calmer than this one. Which, I do think there were some fun scenes in this film. Like, I didn't hate watching everything. Some of the action scenes were quite good. I actually thought some of the beginning scenes were quite fun. I liked the little fake out. I mean, I don't like the fact that Ellie and Alan aren't together anymore, because I always liked them in the first movie.
Yeah,
But I like
agree
the
with
little
that.
fake out with them at the beginning, where you think it might be their kids that they're playing with. You just see Alan and then her husband comes home. So I thought that was a fun little fake out. Plus, I like that they show that even though they're not together anymore, Ellie and Alan are obviously still close. They obviously still have a connection. I like that she's kind of the one that comes in and saves the day at the end. And I like that they managed to get Laura Dern to come and do a little cameo. So I thought that was nice. And like I said, there were some like of the scenes later on that I did think were actually quite suitably scary. So the pterodactyl scene in particular, I thought was pretty horrifying. That one, and everything, the way they filmed it, with the fog and the mist and, the bird suddenly appearing out of nowhere, particularly when one of them is in the water and the bird is it's pecking at them. It's a pretty horrifying scene. And if I remember correctly, that scene is actually taken from the very original book, because there is a scene in the book where Alan, Steve, and Lex end up with the pterodactyl. So, because The Lost World did that too, used a couple of scenes from the original book that weren't used in the first movie. So that was fun. And like I said, I do remember, and I remember this when I was watching, I remember from the last time I watched the Spinosaurus scene when they're in the water and they're in the cage and the Spinosaurus is trying to get to them. I thought that was suitably scary. Plus, the Spinosaurus is an animatronic, which does make it, that much cooler to watch. Apparently, it is the biggest animatronic that they've built for these films, was the Spinosaurus, which makes sense because, I think they wanted to up the T-Rex in this one, because we've had the T-Rex for the last two movies, so they wanted to bring in something that was bigger and badder. So I thought that was fun. I also actually liked the kid. When they finally found the kid, Eric, I was like, this is a resourceful little kid. And I found it so funny. I said to Stephen, I'm like, this kid has survived on this island by himself for 12 weeks. His stupid parents turn up, and within 2 minutes, he's getting carried off by pterodactyls. He probably would have just been better staying by himself. But I thought the kid was resilient. He wasn't. I thought the actor they got was decent. With kid actors, sometimes you get ones that are quite annoying, but I thought he was cool, and I liked his little moment with with Grant when they were in the hideout and they were having a chat about Grant's book and how he liked his first book better. I also like the little snark at Ian Malcolm that they do, where he's all like, "Oh yeah, I read Malcolm's book. He seems a bit up on himself, so too much chaos." So I liked that, and yeah, I thought the kid was one of the better characters, and yeah.
But yeah, I mean that right there is maybe a good example of something they've used from the previous movies or the first movie, where they've come back to this theme of him and kids and him learning to actually be more family friendly, more kids sort of friendly, and that was a good way to show that in that scene. Another fact I picked up is that Laura Dern is the one who convinced Macy to be in the film. And and that's because they were in a film together around the same time. This film Focus, which is like an indie film, which I've seen that.
I think I've heard of it. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. But it's like they were in that together. So because originally he wasn't going to do this, and she sort of talked him into it, saying like Amanda's like new.
Yes,
I've seen him in lots of things. He always plays Weasley style characters, and
he does, doesn't he?
Memorably, he's in an episode of Seinfeld, and the gag with him in that episode is that he runs like a tennis shop, but he's terrible at tennis. So that's like the gag there, and he has to do this thing where like Jerry has to play really bad in front of like the other guy's girlfriend, and that's the whole thing.
He's in Desperate Housewives, he's in Gilmore Girls. He pops up a lot.
That scene sets a good tone for the movie.
I was going to say
it's kind of a wacky sort of scene, because like when they're going up in the air, like I don't know exactly what they're doing, because normally the activity is that you're on the water. I don't know why they're flying up in the air.
I think so that they can see the dinosaurs. So I think the point is you go up there and you fly alongside the island and you can like see the dinosaurs. I just remember thinking to myself that it was like a good setup, because like this is actually something 100% that would happen. Like if you had an island full of dinosaurs off the coast of Costa Rica, the locals would absolutely find a way to profit off it, you know? So like the fact that someone's gone, hey, we can make money off this in maybe not the safest way, but you know, it's a fun money-making scheme. So yeah, I actually didn't mind the opening scene. I thought it did set the scene quite well, and you know, gave us the setup for the rest of the movie and the rescue mission, obviously. I just found the rest of the movie a bit, just a bit, I don't know, dull. I just wasn't. I think a big part of it was the fact that I couldn't connect with so many of the characters. And, you know, if you can't connect with the characters, then you don't have that emotional investment in the story. And so therefore you don't really care about what's playing out on screen. And so I think that just kind of happened for me. I was, like I said, I was really just there for Alan Grant. And that's that. And he's kind of like the ace in this movie. So he doesn't really have his own like little arc. He's just there to be like the hero, the Indiana Jones biggest speak.
Down in director, because Joe Johnston is one of those workman-like style directors. He's actually had a career over like 3 or 4 decades now, because he did The Rocketeer back in the 80s, and and since he did like the original Jumanji, and then he's done, I think he did that Meet Joe Young as well, which was another.
I remember that one.
Much about that one, but
I just remember the fantastic bit at the end where his car hits Brad Pitt and he goes bouncing off 2 other car bonnets. It's brilliant. But yeah, no, you do find with this movie that sense of like Spielberg adventure is missing, but you know, that's something that, you know, Spielberg can imbue into his films very well. This felt more like almost like a horror film, actually, you know, in its tone and the way that it worked out, you know, whereas the Spielberg films, particularly the first one, they have moments of horror, but overall you're looking at like that sense of adventure, that Spielbergian feel that, you know, you know what I mean, like a Spielberg film, it just has that stamp on it and you just know it instantly, and this one obviously didn't have it. There is one really random scene that I just find hilarious. It's like the smallest bit, and I don't know why they put it in, but that bit where Grant falls asleep on the plane and has the dream that the raptors like actually
a lot of people talk about that scene.
So random. It was just bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, that might have been one where they're trying a bit too hard with it, sort of thing, but it is what it is. I mean, it's only a dream, so because of that, I don't really hate it. But yeah, it's very random. I agree.
Yeah, for me, it's more just the randomness of it. It's like, okay, and more kind of like, what does this have to do with anything? Like, why is Grant dreaming of talking raptors? That's like really random. Just Here is then
So it's less cinematic than like both the films. Even though Lost World for me is a bit of a disappointment, it still definitely had moments where it had that Spielberg stamp on it.
Yeah.
So I think it then just comes down to, do you enjoy the messy elements? Do you enjoy the B-movie fun? And maybe I just enjoy that stuff more than you. I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's almost this sense of it knows it's empty-headed almost. It knows it's kind of selling the popcorn and it just kind of has fun with it. So maybe that's why I enjoy it a bit more. Also, I think there are some good looks to certain things. Like there's some good like set design in the movie. Like
actually, yeah, I will give it that.
Yeah, because I really like that lab that they come across at some point. The look of that was very like science fiction, very like dystopian. And I was getting a bit of a vibe off that, and also just things like the bridge scene and the use of smoke and different things.
Pieces. And I can understand what you're saying about it, like maybe not taking itself too seriously, but I think maybe some of the moments where they tried to give, like, you know, the William H. Macy and Taylor Leona characters more depth just wasn't working for me. So maybe if like the whole movie had just been more like, let's just be stupid and everything, but because they were trying to put like a little bit of family drama into it, it was like, no, this is just not working for me. And I just found, I don't know, just some elements I was just like tuning out. And mostly the parts where I was tuning out was when they were trying to do more of the character moments, you know, when there was action happening, it was like, yeah, I'm happy to sit here and watch dinosaurs wreak havoc and just have fun. But yeah, I found those character moments didn't really land for me. And I was just finding like the main characters, the main family just way too annoying and and just useless. And just like every time someone started screaming, I was just like, shut up. Just shut up.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
I did like the gag with the mobile phone, the satellite phone being inside the dinosaur stomach. Like when they're all like, oh, where's the phone? And they're like, I don't have the phone. And they're just like, oh crap. And you know, when they finally managed to find the phone and you know, call Ellie. Now here's a question. So at the end, Ellie manages to send the Air Force and the Navy. How does she have those connections? I mean, I know her. They say something about her, like her husband working in the State Department. So that's why. Because I'm like, girl, you are connected. How did you manage to do this?
Yeah, no, it is a stretch, but like, I guess he could definitely, like, assuming he's a decent enough guy, like he might have that motivation. It's like, okay, it's your ex-hubby, so it's important. I'll get it done. And funny scene when Alan tries to get hold of her with like the kid, and I love the fact that he's got Barney the dinosaur on the TV.
That was cute. That was a cute little shout out.
He's dancing along, and so what do you think of like Laura Dern's cameo in this? Are you disappointed you didn't get more? Do you think they used her well?
No, I think they used her well. I don't think that they wrote it so that she actually has a place in the storyline. Like, I think if she'd been with Alan on the island, it would have been too much of a stretch. So I actually thought they used her well, you know, showing, like I said, I don't love that she and Alan are broken up, but I think it's understandable after everything they went through. And I think that, you know, the fact that they showed that they're still close, they're still friends, he knows her husband, you know, they're obviously still on good terms. And then I like that she's the one that kind of saved the day in the end. So for me, the cameo worked. I think that they did quite well with Laura. What about you? Did you like it?
Yeah, I think so, especially because of the way it ends, because like her saving the day in that way is it's the most effective she could have been without actually being there. So and I think they were a bit boxed into the corner because it sort of fell on the fact that I don't think Dern was that keen on coming back.
No, I don't think so. I think they just secured her for the cameo.
For a cameo. So given that, I think I think props, because I think they did use her quite well and actually made her quite important, even though she wasn't on screen that much. And you had, like you said, that chemistry is still there with her and Alan in the scenes they were together. Kills in this film aren't really that memorable.
No, they're really not. I
thought the first one was so random because you had like the guy running around in front of the plane, and like in the end the dinosaur just comes out of nowhere. and the blood looks very CGI, and that's a guy I know from things. He's in The Shield. Like, I've seen him in things, and once again, a character like we've got no attachment to, but I thought that death was pretty weak.
Yeah.
I'm sort of straining to remember.
The pilot, I think, is the one that dies next, because he gets taken out of the plane. Like, that's right, because the plane crashes in the branches of the tree, and Taya Leone's character starts flailing around when they're all like, "Oh my God, sit still, sit still." God, she's so stupid. And then then the pilot gets like taken. And it's actually really funny because as he's getting taken, I think he grabs Taya Leone's character, and I'm screaming at the TV. I'm like, "Take her with you, take her with you!" And then he didn't, so I was very disappointed by that. But no, again, I think he just gets taken out of the plane and then just like munched on. Like, it's not the deaths in this one are very, and they're the only two deaths we get, I think.
Well, there's one other, because there's the guy who's played by the one out of the Green Mile.
He gets eaten by raptors. He gets trampled and eaten by raptors. Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to remember that being an okay death. So that might have been the best one out of those three.
Yeah, but nothing on like even the previous movie had like better deaths. You know, you had the Compy death. You had the guy who got ripped in half by the T-Rexes fighting over him. You know, you actually had some fun deaths. And of course, the first movie has, some of the really iconic deaths. But yeah, this one, and like you said, the fact that they seem scared to kill off a main character was like really annoying. Like, I really think Billy should have just died. And yeah, maybe one of the parents. Because there weren't really that many deaths. And by the end of it, it was just getting to the point where like,
Well, I do have a theory on this, and my theory is I think they were trying to reboot it with new characters.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of the stuff with the Kilbys does smack of they're setting them up for like another film.
Yeah, you're right.
I think at the time they're probably on the assumption Sam Neill might not come back for another one. Laura Dern is obviously only briefly in this one, so it does feel a little bit like maybe they're setting up new characters.
And maybe that's why they kept Billy, because like you said, he's supposed to be like the new Alan Grant, so maybe they saved him so that he would be the lead for the next. That's actually not a bad theory, and I might just adopt that theory because then it makes the lack of deaths a little bit easier to take.
Because it's not confirmed, but it does look like the Kilbys are probably getting back together.
They do heavily imply that.
Yeah. But overall the deaths and there's some fun set pieces and stuff, but the deaths are a bit weak, and it's obviously disappointed and they chicken out on Billy. But there's a couple of really good visual moments. Get to the island actually, and I really like the stuff in the aeroplane. When the dinosaurs are coming straight up to it, and the plane's ripped in half, and stuff like that. That's the B-movie side, and I'm kind of enjoying. And I think probably the scene of the movie, well, I think it's either the one on the bridge or the one on the boats. I really like the boat stuff on the water. I mean, I agree with you. They're sort of cheaply trying to recreate the magic of the first movie with that moment. And it still sort of hits in a way, because it's hard not to be taken in by that music and stuff.
Yes,
but it's just the fact that they've done it before, and there was probably a moment like it in Lost World as well. So, at this point,
I mean, they have that in every movie. You have to show the awe of the dinosaurs along with the horror. I mean, that's kind of the whole combination that these movies run on: the awe and then the horror. But I think one of the issues with this one is they did the horror first. So we actually got the bad dinosaurs, then we got the awe moment, where I think it works better the other way around. If you do the awe moment first and then you do the horror, the good stuff is turned into the bad stuff. But I mean, like you said, that music, you hear that score, and you're right, you can't help but get swept up by it. And I do think that some of the score in this movie was quite good. I thought it had some nice callbacks to the score from the original movie, and I think some of the music during some of the more intense scenes was quite effective. So the score was not too bad. And whenever you bring in that theme song, it's just it's so iconic. So you definitely get swept away with it. But for me, overall, I think this film was a bit underwhelming. But it will be interesting when we get to the third film of the next trilogy to see how it measures up against this one. Because for me, I do think of the three films that we've seen so far, for me, this is the weakest. But it sounds like for you, it's The Lost World is still behind. Yeah, fair enough.
Well, I think so for the reason I said earlier, because I think that is the one where it's trying to recreate the original one. This one, I think, feels a bit more like its own movie, and it just works. It's just quite fun as that. Like, if you don't take it too seriously, sort of thing. The bridge scene as well. That's actually quite legitimately tense. Shame that they chicken out with Billy, but like the actual scene where it looks like he's sacrificed himself.
That's a good scene.
It's a good scene. It's a mess. It's a complete mess, and like it's no surprise given the history of it, the production of it. Yeah. So, but you can see that. So it's just a case of if it's a fun mess or a not so fun mess. What are you going to rate this one?
Look, I'm obviously going to rate it lower than you're going to rate it. I think I can't go any higher than a 5. Not for me, because it was just not great. So it gets that because, like I said, I do think some of the scenes are effective. Like we've talked about, the bridge scene, the water scene with the Spinosaurus. Alan Grant, Sam Neill always raises the film because, you know, he's fantastic. I like the chemistry between him and Dern, and I do think he's got some fun character moments. But like I said, for me, the other characters are just so irritating and I just couldn't deal with them. And I just found that this particular movie, I think the lack of plot and the fact that they didn't have as much fun with it. You know, we've talked about other movies where it's like, you know, you're kind of playing into the dumbness of it, but you're not going far enough. It's like you really need to lean into it. Whereas I think this movie was kind of going a bit back and forth. So not horrendous, but definitely not great. So I'm going to go with 5 out of 10, straight down the middle for me. What about you?
Okay, well, because I had quite a bit of fun with it, I'm going to go 6.5.
Nice. Well, that's not too
Very
bad.
solid. Yeah, that's about right. Like, because I gave the last film a 6. So I enjoyed this one a bit more, so I have to go a little bit higher. Lead my second favourite. At this point, we're also going to get into... Because originally, like, they would have banked on more movies, but I think this was the least successful of the original 3, and they did that thing of, you know, waiting a while, and now you know, everything gets rebooted at some point. So this was no different. So they started again with Jurassic World, which of course will be our next review in this franchise. So we'll look at the current trilogy of Jurassic movies, the modern trilogy of Jurassic World movies. So you can expect the first one of those really soon. We'll be reviewing that coming up on the channel. But let us know your thoughts on the third Jurassic Park in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share us out on social media, and Rachel, if you want to promote your channel.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays on movies and TV shows. I don't have anything Jurassic Park related on there at the moment, but you never know in the future. It's a great franchise to analyze. My Tumblr and my Twitter are also linked through my YouTube, and Keith usually puts a link in the description, so come and follow me everywhere.
Okay, thanks guys. Keep watching movies, and we'll see you again soon. Okay, bye.